Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Ryan Thompson. I'm the gallery director and professor in the art department. If you don't recognize my face, that's who I am. Thanks for being here. We're really excited to have Ads Donna in the gallery for this closing reception. Hopefully you've all seen the show. Tonight is an extra special reception because we have DJ Ben Marcus, aka DJ Pluto, playing some. Is here?
He's not here.
Not here yet. Not here yet. Playing some music for us and providing the dance tunes. So please stick around. There's going to be some food and drink and music. So we have 3 and maybe other Ads Donnas here from a collective of 8. They run an exhibition space and do independent work and collective work. So the work in the gallery is a sort of collective exhibition that they put together specifically for the Searville Gallery. And you're going to hear a lot more about their space and the work that they've done together. They run an exhibition space and also have like a theory reading group.
Not just theory.
Not just theory.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi, great. That's awesome. And will be specifically interesting to a few students in the audience, I know. So we're really pleased to have them. Yeah. What's tomorrow? Oh yeah, sorry. I need a bit of department news or business. Tomorrow at 3:30, Gregory Wolf is on campus giving a lecture as a part of the Music Scholarship Festival Conference. Thank you, conference. He's the editor of Image Journal, and it would be really worth seeing his lecture and hearing what he has to say. So 3:30 in the chapel, I believe. You should all be there. All right. So, Ads Donna. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Just a minute. They are not all named Ads Donna. They all have individual names. So, Holly Merkerson, Kaylee Wyatt, and Jerome Axe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Holly, as you mentioned, there are actually 8 of us, kind of all over the place here. And I think we're going to kind of do, this is a little bit conversational, so kind of be going back and forth a little bit here, interjecting whatnot. But first, thank you so much to Trinity College for hosting us, and to Ryan, to Josh Ippel for organizing the show in the first place, Carl and Caleb, I'm not sure if they're here, but they helped us install, and to Ben Marcus too, who's not here yet, but he's going to be DJing for us later. He DJs around Chicago all the time, and does super fun kind of house music type stuff, so it should be really fun. I hope everyone sticks around and dances with us. So we've kind of arranged the talk to be somewhat chronological to our history, so we'll kind of be jumping around a little bit in terms of the activities that we do. Describing who and what Ads Donna is and what we do is always a little bit complex because we sort of do a number of things. Thank you. So the short, simple answer is we are 8 artists. So we run an artist-run gallery. We facilitate these study groups. We work collectively. As you can see, the show is, I think this is our 4th that we've done together. I think the thing that's kind of nice about us, our conversations extend to our greater community. We have friends and whatnot that come regularly to our shows. We're a little bit of outside of the city, or not outside of the city, but we're a little bit of you have to venture to us, let's just say that. So people stick around during our openings. We have a nice little hallway. Maybe go to the next slide. People hang out. So we have lots of conversations with sort of our greater community. It's a nice way to, I think, blur the boundaries of what a collective is. So a lot of people ask us what Ads Donna means. We get that a lot. My favorite answer has always been that it's a short poem, a noun and a verb. So ads being sort of this optimistic verb. Javier, one of the original founding members, chose the verb and asked Jesus to choose the noun. And Jesus is actually from Donna, Texas, so kind of representative of the place. And I've always liked that it's a female name too. So, jump in at any point.
Another thing that we do outside of this, we all make our own work. We're individual artists, but this is the collective is a chance for us to kind of make work that we wouldn't normally make. I make paintings, sculpture. Kaylee makes paintings. One of the other Donnas, he makes some video work and drawings. Holly makes photography and installation type work and sculptures. But this is a chance for us to really kind of push our boundaries, coming together as the kind of like one artist.
That was one of the original, thoughts about the collective is like, okay, are we making work together, like where all of our works are sort of visible and recognizable, or, it's always in a question when we have an opportunity to show like this as a collective. Certain shows we've done, you can kind of tell if you know us and you know our individual work, you can kind of see our hands in it, but most often we're interested in the idea of like disappearing under the Ads Donna name or whatever, and just being Ads Donna the artist. So like this show that you're about to see or have seen,
Yeah.
we all had a hand in the sort of making of it and the conceptualizing of it and presenting it as one person. So that's an idea I think that that sort of runs throughout.
And Holly mentioned about we make work collectively. We have an exhibition space. We have these study groups. There's a number of things that we do. There's always a conversation that's going on, whether it's at an opening with a friend, and it's inclusive. Like, we don't just say, oh, I'm making the work and, it's my idea. There's ideas that come in through conversation, whether it was through like one of those study groups that kind of, infiltrate our hive mind, if you want to call it, and help us kind of to shape and mold curatorial role, and the maker, that kind of role, and even the discussions that we have, like, we start talking about Greek literature at some point, and somehow poetry comes in and we start talking about poetry, and it just keeps on moving in a very fluid kind of nature.
So just to mention a few of the study groups that we've had, our first one was Greek literature and philosophy. Mm-hmm. That was our longest run and most popular study mm-hmm. group, I think. It ran for a whole academic year. And the friend at the time and colleague who put it together is now a Donna. So you see like the ads, like we're constantly extending the family, if you will. So like someone proposes a study group and then they become like a real part of who we are and contributes to the conversation and sometimes joins us.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too, the study groups, I think the thing that we've strived for from the beginning, we don't necessarily follow any kind of traditional pedagogical model. Someone sort of proposes a subject or a topic to us. They maybe give us a loose syllabus, but they're not like the expert. They don't come in as a teacher. So maybe it's sort of a rancière kind of model, if anything. And so the talks end up being, everybody comes, they've read the material or seen the film or whatever the subject is, and they come with their own authority. And it's been a really lovely way to have a very organic mm-hmm. kind of discussion that leads to the next meeting. Everyone will sort of like vote maybe on what they want to discuss and read and talk about next. And we found that's been a very like fruitful way to be organized about that.
So sorry I didn't finish the list. It was
Greek
study, and then we did poetry,
mm-hmm.
and then we took it down a notch with sci-fi.
Super fun.
And then we did a documentary film study group, which was just like screening films.
We were watching things and talking about it afterwards.
Things you do with your friends.
We've done this wasn't so much a study group, but like a plein air sort of painting group that someone put together at the Garfield Park Conservatory. And upcoming, what's the newest one is?
We have one probably starting next month called Invisible Geographies, with like Peter Greenaway films, I think, on the agenda, and some Italio Cavino and things of that nature. So we're looking forward to that.
So I'm going to start talking about one of the first solo exhibitions we had in our space. And right off the bat, I want to say we're not going to show you lots and lots of work of our own work, but these we take pride. We curate, we pick these artists, we have conversations, like long conversations on on display mechanisms, installation, because we feel like that is such a major factor in work. American Smooth was a solo exhibition the first year we were around in our space, and it was by an artist named Lindsay Lawson, who is actually from the U.S., but she's living in Germany, and at the time she was actually in Egypt, which was during the
Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring, which so it was kind of a crazy. We were having trouble communicating with her, but luckily we were able to kind of help her make the work that she really, really wanted. She was basically stuck in Egypt, so we helped her make this show what she really wanted it, and also something that we really wanted to have in our space. She'd never really shown her video work, I say simultaneously or overlapping, and at the time we had a wall built in our space, so it became kind of two separate rooms. It's normally just this kind of
one big room,
one big rectangle, maybe 600, 700 square foot space, and what you're seeing on the slide right now is two videos. So one has no sound at all, and the other one has a sound or sound to it, a song called Unchained Melody, which you guys probably have heard.
Righteous
Brothers. Also seen kind of from the movie Ghost. You guys seen Demi Moore, making the ceramic sculpture or throwing the pot, and you hear the song in the background. So on the left-hand side, it's kind of a similar kind of experience with that, but it's actually a 3D generated kind of image. This piece on the right, that is the right up there, right? Okay.
Sure. So this was Lindsay Lawson actually used a trained dancer to learn Yvonne Rainer's sort of signature Trio A piece that she did in the 1960s. She mentioned also the Righteous Brothers song is also from the same decade, so there was that kind of tie there. Lindsay's piece was titled A Trio. So essentially you have this dancer performing in front of this projected performance by Yvonne Rainer, with her shadow becoming sort of the third body. And if you've all seen Ghost from, I think, 1990, the animation that was in the second room with the Unchained Melody playing over it is this moment where he comes back as a ghost, and sort of they have this really lovely romantic moment. So you enter the gallery and you hear this song sort of playing over the whole space. It's about like the sway of bodies, and it was really lovely. It had a really profound sort of emotional romantic affect to it. And then not until you enter the second back room did you realize where the sound was coming from. And so I think that was a good example of how we collaborate with our artists, even on the solo level. We totally give them full reign, but they usually are pretty excited to have a discussion and a dialogue. And then one side note, or you want to talk about this, maybe the waltz?
Yeah. I think one of the main attractions to that second piece, with the sculpture in the back, that song Unchained Melody, is actually it's a slow waltz. And I don't know why, but somehow conversations started spurring up about waltzing ever since. So it's been sort of in the back of our mind for a while, and thinking about that 3/4 time beat as a sort of natural, or a really, really fitting for natural human sway and movement. So I think that was one of the main, and it really struck us in that show, because coming into that first video and watching a trio which has no necessary beat or rhythm, like set rhythm, it's very sort of asymmetrical and strange, but somehow that song fit with it, because it's got this, it's very hard to describe, but it sort of set this ball in motion. And just to give a sneak peek, that's one of the first conversations that sparked the show here. So dancing
Circa
has
AD,
been
yeah, it's been on our minds for a few years
so
now.
we're happy to
So a lot of the, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of the conversations that we have with artists that show in our space spur ideas in our own making, and it's very, very fruitful. I mean, that constant, and this is kind of not just yet. It's not.
They're married.
It's like it's think about it, a post school kind of experience. When you get out of school, the conversation stops. You don't hear so and so talking about your piece to you anymore, and we constantly want that conversation to continue.
Yeah. It's always felt like an extension of our own individual practices. And this show, actually, the Lindsay Lawson show, was what I was kind of around for the study group, and it was before I was a Donna. But it was a show that made me want to become one, essentially.
One more
those
thing
kinds
about
of-
the Lindsay Lawson show. Sorry, we'll keep moving.
We'll speed up after this.
But we were really excited to approach Lindsay because she was somebody like completely out of our friend network. It's really, when you're running an artist-run space, it's really tempting and really easy.
Friends approach you all the time.
To show your friends and show the people whose work you're around all the time and you really care about and love and want other people to see it. But one of our main goals, especially in the beginning, was to try and cast the net further and try to bring more people to our space that haven't been seen in Chicago before. And so that was our one really big one that we were
This was
really
a
psyched about.
This was a small exhibition that we kind of put together at an art fair. It was actually an artist-run art fair in Chicago. It's been going on for a few years now. The two artists in the show, one was Leah Patagorski, who's now in Pittsburgh, and this other guy, Jared Madeir, who he makes very different work. His piece was a lot of bananas and
Coconut rum.
and a drink. He concocted a drink that people were supposed to have at this art fair, which he used really fancy like alcohol, like expensive alcohol. And it was not tasty at all. It was disgusting, but it I don't know. It was just a strange kind of like, I don't know. You're at a fair. People walk around with drinks, and you know it's. He was thinking about the context of the where he was exhibiting. So, God is Represented by the Sea is another solo exhibition that we did that first year. A lot of the solo exhibitions, they're from artists that we they're not our friends, but they're maybe mentors. Like, we've liked their work, we like their conversation, we've talked to them so many times, and we're so excited about their work. This was one of the first chances that Mark had to show this type of work. These vinyl letters are cut by hand. He cuts every single one. This is not machine done. So this is a drawing to him. He was making this work for a while, and then he was also making sound pieces and paintings at the time, and he really wanted to kind of do something that he had never done before, which was actually bringing all this work together. It's always been like, within commercial spaces, I want paintings, or I want this, I want this. He's never got a chance to really play with his work in an exhibition space. So before we were talking about, we're constantly like having discussions with the artists. We helped him cut all these letters. It took a very, very long time, but it was a lot of fun, and we got to learn a lot about Mark, and basically have a long conversation with him about his work and really get to know his work and appreciate it even more. I'm just going to show you a few images.
And for Mark too, this was Jerome said this was an opportunity for him. He had never got to show this work outside of he had only been showing in a commercial gallery since then. So when we approached him, he was really excited to do some experiments. And unfortunately, we don't have the sound piece to share with you, or do we?
Let me just try one more time.
But Mark started a sound piece, which is the title of the show, God is Represented by the Sea, and it actually is a spurred, or this ongoing poem that he keeps re-recording in different situations. So it's since been shown first at Donna and then at Devning Projects, which is another Garfield Park gallery just down the road from us, and then most recently at the Cultural Center in Chicago. So we're excited to sort of help launch that project with him.
So Black Moon was our first solo exhibition as a collective. We made work as one artist. We kind of talked about that before. I'm going to pull up some sound and then talk a little bit. So the space was out in Portland, Oregon, and when we first got this show, we talked about what we were, and this is when we were having that conversation of like, how do we show as this group? You know, what are we doing? And I heard, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit.
Right now you hear nothing.
Oh. I don't know how to operate the sound from, oh well. I'm going to,
Oh, there's a volume.
I'll pause it. I'll pause it. It's okay. I paused it. So you were hearing two different soundtracks. We talked a lot about how we were going to make this work and what it was supposed to look like. What adds Donna artists, you know, what kind of work would we make as the singular person. And at one point we heard this talk on NPR. I can't remember, Science Friday, if anybody ever listens to Science. Yes, and one of the one of the guys who kind of ran the Hubble Space Telescope program was on the air, and someone asked him a question: are the green and pink nebulae real, or are those pictures real?
Are the colors real?
The colors real?
Yeah.
And he didn't really answer a yes or no, like straightforward. He said, "We make the lenses, so you're seeing things through the lenses that we make." And that was kind of that kind of conversation, that those few that sentence was the thing, kind of it felt right for what Adds Donna is, because we're constantly talking. There's more voices than just mine or Holly's or Kaylee's. There's so many different voices, and not just our voices, but our friends. They're all coming in, and we're always pulling things in. And we thought about having a show where you're constantly seeing things through lenses. So there was this kind of massive image that we put up on the wall, 15 by 9 foot image. 15 by 9 foot image, and it was hard not to see that image while seeing all the other work. And the same goes for with the sound that you were hearing earlier. Those are actually two soundtracks from two different movies. One had these really high tones, one had these really, really low tones, and they would kind of, since they were not synced, they would constantly come in and out, kind of phase in and out. So you would, one moment you would experience the images, the sculptures, the objects that were in the space in a different way. In the same way, you know, you experience the sculpture this way because you're looking at the image, and then not experiencing it in another, you know, you're experiencing it in many different ways. So this show is a very low-tech way of making a very experiential kind of exhibition. What do you want to do?
Can we do the next step? So yeah, I would say that kind of came. Wish You Were Here was the show that we had. I can't remember how the chronological order of that, but came out of some of those similar ideas. A little Daffy Duck there.
This is an exhibition in our space.
This is not a collective show.
Not a collective show.
But probably one of our more experimental shows that we did. It was situated over the course of about 3 months. We had works come and go. 2 pieces sort of became our timepieces, if you will.
Pieces on this slide.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the slide on the
right.
The video you see in the background was an ascending rocket ship. Outside it was sound.
It was always ascending.
Always ascending, a perpetual loop. So it sort of felt like a clock of a sort. And then a piece by an artist named Joe Hormuth, the postcard rack you sort of see. It was a vintage found piece, but all the images are repeated. There's a circular pattern sitting on this extra tall stool you probably had to climb up onto to actually sit on.
It's like this tall.
Yeah.
So those pieces stayed in the show, and everything else kind of came and went over the course. So things got new neighbors, some things stuck around, and so it was this idea about
The lights went off, the lights went on.
Yeah,
like,
shifting
certain pieces
context.
disappeared and came back again. So we had like 3 different soft openings. So depending on when you came to see the show, you saw a completely different show. And we were really interested, again, in that idea of like, you know, that when you come and what you're thinking about and what the work's next to creates meaning, not like what we say on, you know, in a press release or whatever. It's the viewer's experience that matters.
Okay, so Field Mantle was, we're always trying to bring in new types of work into our space. This group is more of a performance group, but they've never really shown objects before. They've done performances all over the place, like not just here in Chicago, but New York, LA, like everywhere. But they wanted to kind of like turn it into objecthood. So they brought things from the neighborhood. They pretty much, most of it was found objects. They brought things from outside in. They still had videos of their performances in the space, but they also kind of created this room out of cardboard boxes, which that is like a major thing that they use in their performances. They kind of wear them, they use them as props. So they kind of turn their props into a structure to kind of see a performance, which was kind of a nice way to see their work in a different way. Yeah. Okay, so Archipelago was our second solo, or I keep on saying solo, even though it was our second show that collective show, and it was actually in an artist-run space in Chicago. It was in a basement, which is kind of a strange place to be showing work, because it's dark, it's smelly, it smelled funny. There's one tiny window. When we went to see the space, we're like, how do we show work in this room? Like, it, we think big, and it's hard to, like, it was cramped, the ceiling's low.
Really low.
So we started talking about like what this space meant to us, what should we do with this space. So we kind of decided to, let's turn it into, kind of, since it's a basement, like this subconscious, or this thing that's like, I don't know, where you store things, where you all the things come together, like you're in your head, like these things just kind of jumbled together, mixed up.
Also, I think basement, for a lot of people, it's like when you're like still living with your parents or whatever, like it's that place of refuge. Maybe like the party room. Or, like when I was a kid, like I had to share a room with my brother and my sister, so like the basement, no matter how gross it was like my escape. So we sort of embraced that idea and embraced like the dark, and we were really excited about having a show where we had like bright things in a dark space. It became really psychedelic and really dreamlike, and we started playing on these ideas of islands, like that we each had our little islands, but they were all connected, as in the archipelago. It was a really trippy show.
Natural Disaster was another solo exhibition that we had in our space. It was a kind of another mentor. Allison Rutan, she's been showing work in Chicago, outside of Chicago, for years. She'd been working on work that had never been shown, ever. She'd been working on for 2 years, and she really wanted to a place and to try it out, to really kind of push her boundaries as an artist. So she wanted to build this gigantic table in our space, and it was a really nice experience to kind of see new work kind of mold into something like so beautiful and so like I don't know, perfect for, or at least the installation was so perfect for what she had envisioned. We've always tried to like give the artist the freedom to do that.
And for Allison too, who is making like dramatically, visually disparate work. Photographs, and she was doing some research and study about apes, I think, and just making such wildly different work, and had been working on these ceramic sculptures for a number of years without the opportunity to actually show them. And so I think we saw a need to be filled.
So the table that she constructed, we actually scorched with a blowtorch in our parking lot. She was really excited to do that and to have like a place that didn't care about open flames, and it looked really beautiful. And she's since been able to show this work at the Cultural Center, right?
And the Hyde Park Art Center.
So.
And Duck Rabbit, I think we just wanted to briefly mention, this was a show from last fall. So I think we try to be really careful not to like fall into the same exhibition models constantly, or like always make ourselves curators with a capital C. So sometimes we find ways to relinquish control, and one way is by asking some of our colleagues, our friends, people whose interest we were interested in that could maybe tell us something that we didn't know. So this was just a show that was curated by Michael Milano, who is now a Donna, and Jeff Ward. A little bit about abstraction, but abstraction being rooted in immanence rather than transcendence, and some recognizable things from maybe everyday life. Group show. Alex.
Alex Jovanovich had an exhibition called Some Poor Girls, and sorry, I was clicking in the wrong place. And very, very different work. He does make objects, but he always tries to find ways to, I don't know.
And he's a writer, and so I think
to bring his
writing
kind
into
of
the
poetry, his writing into the work. He made these kind of silent films, but they're actually with old technology slide projectors, so there's this constant hum in the space, which is a really nice kind of, I don't know, thing to hear. But one thing that was great about his work, he had such an amazing turnout. A lot of people came. One of the curators for the Next Whitney Biennial, she visited the show, and now he is in that show. So it was such a great. It's great for us to have that happen to one of our artists. Like Alex Jovanovich, we love him. He was such a great person to work with. Really brilliant and
super generous.
We're like in the hood out west Garfield Park. And for people to just come out and see it, it's always exciting for someone to just come and see the work, and really appreciate it the same way we appreciate the artists.
Which maybe as a side note too, that's a good segue to talk about. I think when we organize shows, we try to be cognizant of allowing the audience to sort of have the authority and to sort of make the meaning. We try not to be didactic with our PRs and all that sort of thing. We try to leave that a little bit open and create shows that are like maybe challenging. There's information there for you to come in and make meaning and make it worthwhile, make it worth being, spending your time in our space, and then hopefully having a conversation with us after.
We're gonna wrap this up soon. I know you guys are getting
We're gonna dance soon.
Between Hearth and Campfire was another collective exhibition that Donna did at Lipscomb University that was in Nashville, Tennessee. We were all making this 8-9 hour drive down to Nashville, and we started talking about Donna as, I don't know, we've been adding on, we've been kind of like, it's a new frontier for like a lot of the things that we've been doing, and we talked about being settlers. I know that's kind of presumptuous of us being an artist as being a settler, but we started talking about communal kind of like making. We all have this kind of craft sense in our work. Not all of us, but the majority of us. There's a part of craft that's really in our own personal work is a part of that work. So we were talking about that, and we all wanted to make tools that kind of, would somewhat
help us establish our newfound
yes
land.
And we made a quilt together. We had a quilting circle.
I think this show probably addressed communal, like the idea of the collective more so than any other. Like we sat around and we quilted together.
Quite literally.
For a couple months straight. So
these tools in the quilt, they weren't really that functional. The quilt's a triangle, which you can.
Oh, right.
The quilt's a triangle, so I guess it's functional in certain ways, but it's more of it's an image. But it was the idea of coming together and making this thing together. We also made tools that we would use as a group. We had a fire pit, kind of, out of candles that smelled like campfire. But that was a really kind of good experience to kind of help us to really start pushing, working in this hive mind. I'm sorry?
I said I'm going to speed us up
Yeah.
a little bit. So Chic Boutique was the last show of last season. by a collaborative duo who work out of Vienna, Austria. And I think this was sort of like a marketplace of sorts. Like it was set up as a boutique with, in a similar way, like sort of functional and non-functional objects, art objects. They painted the whole gallery pink, which was hard to paint back. And we actually will be having our next collective show will be in Vienna in May, and so a few of us will be traveling out there for that. We're pretty excited about. All right, we're gonna speed it up. Floating drawings. This is our fall opener. Alexei Petrov was somebody actually I had been working in the library with at SAIC when I was a grad student, and also someone who had been working on these objects for 7+ years without a single one of them being shown. A lot of love in his craft, and yeah, I don't know, we saw they're really beautiful, delicate sort of silk gouache panels over wire armatures, and they play with the idea of what a drawing or sculpture is. And he was actually just reviewed in the online edition of Art in America for this show. We're pretty excited about that.
It was really refreshing to work with someone who literally like buries himself in a studio for years and comes out like completely fresh and new and like so excited. And I don't know, I think we were all just really proud and excited to show some work that hadn't been seen by anyone for a long time. And yeah, I think it was refreshing, I guess, just to see an artist who's obviously making work for himself, not for like any sort of careerism or like this track towards anything. It's for its own sake.
For its own sake, definitely. We closed that show actually with a rooftop performance by a sound duo, a Chicago-based sound duo called Coppice. They tend to work with electronics and bellows-based, like organs and whatnot. And we had a beautiful October fall day with bright blue skies, gorgeous weather. And the Green Line actually, one of the trains in Chicago runs right by our building. So it was actually a nice sonic sort of component to their performance. And that brings us to this show, which you've all seen a little bit of. I don't know if I want to say too much since we're going to experience it, but maybe Jerome wants to say something.
We mentioned earlier, or Kaylee mentioned earlier, one of the first solo shows that we had in our space, the Waltz. The Waltz has been coming up over and over again. And in some ways we kind of see this dance floor as a celestial place. There are things that are constantly moving, and we're kind of like, we'll be finishing the work in the actual space. We'll be kind of like the things that aren't constants, and there are many things. I say many. There's a few things in the space that are these constants that continuously, and will hopefully they have been going on since the beginning of the show. And even though you're walking through the space, you're kind of breaking that. You're breaking that up a little bit. The metronomes get broken up by either sound that you make, or if you play whatever music you want to play. There were tapes that we had set up in there. The dance floor itself is a pattern. It's a pattern that reflects. It's a pattern that slightly changes when you walk on it. And even with the images itself, when they're projected, I'm describing the work to you, I'm sorry. But we just got excited talking about the waltz, like this constant swaying, the movement and how, sorry,
No. It's good.
I'm getting stuck. It's new work. It's tougher to talk about newer work, I'll say.
Yeah. It hasn't been really danced on yet, other than us just goofing off in the space during install. So, we are kind of hoping that everyone will participate. And Ben Marcus is an excellent DJ. And I don't know, I think maybe we end there and invite you down the hall.
Unless there are questions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Sorry, we sped up at the end. We were slowing down.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
So many different kinds of interdisciplinary work. I'm wondering if you have criteria that you approach approach projects with? Like, how do you choose the artists? And what would you say are sort of the main threads running through your identity as a gallery?
It's
I don't
lots of conversations. I mean, it's not just, there isn't like a democratic way that we decide on things. Like, we don't vote. It's usually the loudest voice. And
We argue a lot.
we argue a lot in a good-natured way. But we all have very strong opinions on what art should be. But a lot of times those opinions will overlap. We get excited about it's a conversation that gets us excited, and usually the work falls into that. Even with formal work, like when we're having a conversation about formal, whether like specific forms, like a rectangle or a triangle, like we all get more excited about triangles. I know that sounds weird.
It's the strongest shape, so.
Odd numbers. Something about odd numbers to make more sense. At least us as a group, because there's no evenness. Sorry, I interrupted.
So you said, how do we choose our artists, and also what was the other question?
Sort of just like how you would describe your identity as a gallery.
I think the second part of that, like the running theme with us has always been context. We're always interested in what's going on outside the space, next to the space, in the space, like that adds to and creates meaning. So I think that's the same with our collective, our gallery, and in the study groups, like this constant like shifting of who's right, who's got the idea, and creating that story. It's like constantly shifting in flux.
You might have said this already, but what's your current study group?
Well, it hasn't started yet, but it's called Invisible Geographies. So yeah, we'll probably meet a couple Sundays every month, I think. This is run by a woman named Ariel March Williams. She approached us with this topic, and I think she's interested in some of these maybe intangible but sort of physical spaces. I know she's wanting to watch Sans Soleil. She's wanting to read Invisible Cities, Calvino, and what else is on the list? Peter Greenaway films, I think, are on that list. And George Perec, who writes about sitting in a cafe and what it means to be across the street. He gets really micro about starting from the bed and working out to the universe and things like that. So that's what we're up to next. You're in Chicago.
Yes.
Read and join.
We'll post things on our website. Oh, and if you guys want to be on our mailing list, come up to us and we'll write your email down and put you on there. We're happy to see you in space. Sorry, were there more questions, comments?